Hi, welcome back to Backstage Pass with Phoenix, and I have a really special guest on today. I know a bunch of you really wanted to hear behind the scenes of Broadway, and so I have somebody on with me right now, Chase Ramsey. He's actually on Broadway, so we get to get all the inside secrets today. And he was on the Book of Mormon musical. He played Elder Cunningham. I have a few questions from guests that we're going to get to, but first I wanted to thank Chase for being on with us today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, glad to be here. I just noticed in the background right there is the poster
Oh,
on
hey.
my ceiling signed by the cast
Oh,
that I
that's
was with.
awesome.
Yeah,
And yeah, I was gonna say it looks like it has a lot of famous signatures on it. That looks so fun.
just shining. So,
Well, tell us, like, how did you get to be on Broadway? Tell us the story. Like, how long have you been acting? Tell us a little bit about your background.
well, I first have to say Broadway was so long ago, and it's hard to remember, but it is as the pandemic hit, that's when I was off Broadway. So that's beginning of 2020 is, I mean, it's been 5 years since Broadway. And it's weird because it is something that is hard to do. And the people that do it full time and my friends that I've kept in touch with out in New York, because I'm on the West Coast now, are just, I mean, it's not easy. I will say when I did my first movie job after that, everyone on everyone on the film set, and now a lot of them are my very good friends, were like, I was going to a film set thinking that I was going to be around movie stars, and
Yeah.
they are, but they were on the film set excited that they were around a Broadway star, and they were like, gosh, you did the hard thing. You did the real, like, actual hard thing, and it's funny because I think where I was like, gosh, I want to do your hard thing. Like, can I
Mm-hmm.
do yours? But yeah, but Book of Mormon, I got an audition years ago. I was living in San Francisco. I was doing a food show full time. I had like a Food Network show, and I was just a host and a personality in that way. But I really wanted to I wanted to um do theater again because I had done my undergrad in that, and I was working in San Francisco at like regional theaters. Like I worked at Berkeley Rep, and what else did I do out there? Yeah, I worked some other shows as an actor, and was also trying to be a director. Like I directed for Disney, for Disneyland and Disney's California Adventure as a show director for a year.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was just kind of booping all over, and you know, some would say, and I'll just put this out there, for those of you who like mental health and psychology, some would say that I was trying to sort of be good enough, or oh, if I can just get this next job, then I'll be an accomplished something. So I was just hustling and hustling and hustling, and I got this audition and went to New York. And what's funny is, as I'm auditioning, the whole time I'm thinking, there's no way I'm gonna do this. Like even if they offer it, like like I'm not moving to New York with my two kids,
Mm-hmm.
at the time, and um, this just isn't in it. And I was making money, plenty of money in the arts already, so it was like it doesn't make sense, whatever. Literally on the plane home, at the airport, getting the call that it was possibly going to happen. And it was just like, what? No. And I think that my story here is so different than, I just want to put it out there that people who are actors that go to New York and want to do Broadway, want to work in the theater in New York, um, you have to give it 5 years is the typical story. And not to say that my wife and I didn't suffer, or not suffer, but struggle in San Francisco and other places for many years. But I didn't have that typical, I didn't go to open calls. I never, my very first Broadway audition I booked, sort of thing. And so, which is a very weird thing to say. But if people are going to New York, make that your home. You know what I mean? I think is a big thing. But anyway, there's the rant on how that kind of happened, and I can go into more detail about it. But
Yeah, no, I would love to hear. So you started out as a theater kid? Did you start out like how long have you been acting?
yeah, I mean, like in high school, I was more. I guess you would say I did theater for sure. People would probably say I did theater, but I did sports mostly. I had a dad who sang, so I got into singing and did a little bit of that, but I never thought it would be my career. And then I for one reason or another, I got thrown into an acting class in college.
Oh
And
wow.
and the teacher was this brilliant, brilliant man that ended up being a good friend for a while. And um his name is Dave Tinney, and he's like a Utah guy because I went to college in Utah. Um, and he just, I don't know, it clicked. He inspired me, and that class inspired me. And I just felt, sometimes like in the film world, they say that like theater is 90% confidence or whatever. And I think at that time, I was still in the place of like, oh, no, I've got this. And so theater felt like a really good match for that energy,
Mhm.
and then it was learning how to be truthful and how to have a conversation and how to get into the text. But that so
So you
I
didn't
guess
start till you were in college. You weren't one of these kids that started singing at like 5 or started taking acting lessons at 2?
Yeah, well, I was funny enough, and for the listeners who aren't, I was Mormon growing up, and people who are Mormon often like the community, a lot of people sang. So like I always I could always kind of sing, and I play the drums at like a pretty good level and play the guitar and piano at a level where it was like, oh, I was always very musical, but it wasn't necessarily on purpose. I think honestly, it was just to try and get girlfriends for a very long time. And then, my senior year of high school, they did Les Mis, and my dad said, "You have to do Les Mis. It's Les Mis." And I'm like, I have no idea what that is or whatever. But I auditioned, and I ended up playing Marius and Les Mis in high school or whatnot, and I liked it. I never thought it would be a career. It was just something to get more attention from people, I think
Mhm.
at that point. And maybe that's the same as every theater kid.
Artists.
Yeah, artist. Yeah, 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 yeah. But no, it was never like a clear trajectory. And I truly, truly never thought that I would be on Broadway. Nor was it like something that I was like, I've got to be on Broadway in
Yeah.
that way. And there is something to say, having been a director behind the table before, it's there is something very attractive about people not wanting something.
So that's
There's
like the de lack of desperation, maybe.
I think so. When
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I don't really need this one. It's like that's probably the one you're gonna get, sort of thing. That confident sort of my life is already set up attitude works really well for actors. If you walk into the room needing or just desperate for something, then it kind of shows up. It's
Yeah.
it's interesting, but
I agree with that. That's an interesting point. Well, I know you kind of touched on this, but take me back to that moment then when you found out that you were going to be on Broadway. Like, how did they let you know, and what were your feelings?
yeah, through my manager at the time, and it was it was I think um it was more life stuff. It was like, whoa, moving to New York? Are you serious? And like, okay, I start in July in New York City, and we've got to figure out how to get, are we selling our house and taking everything out there? Are we, you know, am I gonna still be able to do the food show? Am I gonna be so and then kids, like, okay, are we enrolling kids in school? So you know how it is. It's like a big change like that. It's funny, like late enough in life. How old was I? I was probably like 28 when I was on Broadway, if I do the math right. And like at that point, I had two kids. I had sort of an established career already happening. So it was just like, it was more figuring out how to get to New York and start to live that lifestyle, and then come to find out I have a son who has autism. And autism in New York aren't the best of friends all the time, and so those adjustments felt more like what it was. And the more human that it became, the more, there wasn't some big prize at the end of the road sort of thing. It was more like, oh, well, let's make a living doing this. And I think now looking back, I wish I would have handled it a little more like that. I wish I would have looked at it like, oh, you're not going to be on Broadway forever,
Hmm.
and you're not going to be at the top of something forever because thinking about Broadway, it's like, oh, that is as high as you can go in the theater. And I'm not talking quality. I'm not talking, I'm just saying like paycheck wise and that's Broadway is kind of the destination. And now not being on Broadway, it's like, oh, I feel like the same as I did before I was on Broadway, which is, oh, I'm never going to be on Broadway. And so I think that
The
there's
hustle, constant hustle.
and that's not to say, Broadway has since come calling for a couple of roles, and there's been opportunities for us to go back to New York and everything like that. But it's such a taxing move to go back, even though, gosh, I love that city more than any city on this planet. I really do, and I wish I could be there, but it's a big jump. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been fascinating. I'm sure that people listening maybe have a love-hate relationship with you right now, like loving your story, loving what you do, also hating that you just almost sounds like you happenstance into it. And
Mm.
you weren't trying to like aim for Broadway your whole life because I think a lot of people listening were. So we're going to get to their questions in a little bit. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be back with Chase Ramsey about Broadway here on Backstage Pass with Phoenix. In the last segment with Chase Ramsey, he was talking about how he kind of just, it almost sounded like you fell into Broadway, which I don't even think is a thing. Most people are aiming for this their whole lives. As soon as they know how to sing, they're like, I want to be on Broadway, right? And you were saying that you kind of grew up doing sports and other things, and you didn't even really get into the singing part or the performance part until college, which is inspiring for others as well. And so, I mean, we kind of talked about it. People want to know how do people get onto Broadway? What is the steps to get onto Broadway? I guess it's kind of just this ambiguous thing for a lot of people.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think, getting an agent is so important nowadays, having an agent or a manager. And the difference between an agent and a manager, for those who don't know, nowadays they're getting closer and closer together. Some people only have managers. In the past, agents were the only ones that could submit for roles. Managers were ones that would manage the portfolio or the entirety of your business as an actor. Nowadays, managers submit as well. So you can have one or the other. I will say managers are more personal relationships mostly. Agents are more business relationships. Um, and so I think, for me, I wouldn't have known about this audition if I didn't have a manager at the time. But a lot of people can go on, now I'm a member of Actors Equity and have been for 8 years now. And I can go online now and see every Broadway audition that's happening, whether it's in person or they do have a certain amount of video calls since COVID, or video auditions. Now, in my opinion, with theater, if you're the type of person that thrives in the room, then you're a theater person. If you can go in the room and you can be yourself and actually enjoy, like, I just want to go in and I want to, there's something about being a people person. There
Mhm.
is, there is an element of being able to be yourself in the room. Whereas before you audition, it's just sort of like there's a comfort level or there's a whatnot. That's not to say that, these other actors I've seen in shows on Broadway, like Liev Schreiber or like, I don't know, like, I mean, I was going to say Denzel Washington, but I think Denzel Washington is a people person. He's very charismatic, but then he's a brilliant actor underneath all of that as well. So in my opinion, because now I have a past student who just got on Broadway for their first, I've had students along the way who have gone to Broadway and I've sort of watched who and why, but the most recent one, it's like if I were to talk to them, if I were to talk about how they did it, I think that no one told them that they couldn't is really the answer here, which is if you have thought, if anyone has thought at some point that it's not possible, or gosh, Broadway is just so far away, then I think that you've already set up a roadblock for yourself. Because
Yeah.
I'm looking at this other person, and I would say that this other person was, and this is a harsh word, and it has nothing to do with this person, but it's like privileged. I would
Hmm.
say that like I was privileged, which is why I it was so easy for me to go on Broadway. And what I think by privilege is I just never thought that it needed to be a big deal or was a thing, you know? And so it got really easy to be in the room, and then the process from there got easier. It just starts to, so then your nerves aren't affected, your
Hmm.
personality is not affected, your ability to go into the text isn't affected. And the more that I've now since done a significant amount of therapy in my life, and then ended up being on film sets, which is even more reflective of that idea, um, of sort of being with self, I've realized that, oh, a big thing about Kevin Costner and what makes him so good is that he is so relaxed that whatever comes, he's so relaxed physically and mentally that whatever comes up will not have to go through some filter or some judgment before it comes out or before it exists in the world. And that happened to me when I auditioned on Broadway.
Hmm.
It happened to me. I didn't have to filter anything. It was just free flowing. It
Hmm.
just felt like I could release myself
I like that.
into the thing, you know. And of course, to be fair, I think people in New York need to get 5 years because there's also absolutely right place, right time.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was the that just happened to be the role that fit me, and it was just perfect. There's
I love
been
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that conversation about your mindset, about the belief of everything being attainable, and it really does can come into your hands that way. So you're saying that really anybody can audition for Broadway, or do you have to have a specific invitation? You have to have a specific know-how to do this?
Well, nowadays what's
Mm.
great is everybody can audition for Broadway. Everybody.
Oh,
And in fact, there is something to say about how scary it is to go to New York and start doing it, right? And I think, having gone to college in Utah, I think it's daunting here. And people here are like, oh, that's like a whole thing. And the truth is, when you get out there, you're going to be working at the same coffee shop you're working at in Utah. You're going to be working at the same coffee shop you're working out in the Midwest, and you will make enough to pay for rent. You're not going to be around your family. That's probably true, if you're not from there. But it's not a huge, because and I was talking about, oh, it's such a big shift for the family and all that stuff. And yeah, I have kids, and we have to have at least probably a two-bedroom apartment. That's different. But like if you're feeling like you can just go and do it, I mean, you just have to go. And everybody can get an audition. Nowadays, in fact, you can get your equity card if you have been paid to do theater.
mm,
Pretty much, if you had a theater contract that pays you money, you can get an equity card,
mm.
which means that you can go to auditions and be at the front of every line, which is big.
I don't know.
However, Broadway really accepts, um, no, you're gonna wait in lines. You are gonna wait in lines. But if you just love it, then that's the joy, that's the practice of it. And I think the thing that I'm finding is difficult being away from that right now is that I'm away from the people who are doing it at that level.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that it's like there are the people who are doing it at that level, the majority of them, that's not to say everyone, are going to those places.
Yeah.
The people who believe those deep-seated things that have taken centuries for actors to sort of develop in theater and in film, those people have gone to those places to
Mhm.
be around those same like-minded people. And so it's hard to think that you're just going to stay in your small town and get those same developments, as you know what I mean. You need to
Right.
be around those like-minded people
Well,
for
and kind of along with that, so you say people are doing it this level. Um, it probably did feel a little bit different from being on your high school theater stage or maybe college acting class. How was Broadway different from other theater?
Well, it's harder and like truly like kudos to like I have friends who just do 8 shows a week and they have for the past 15 years. Like it's just grueling. I think you take care of your voice, you take care of your body. It's more of a testament of longevity.
Mhm.
Like I think for example, here like in high school or when we're growing up, we have vocal coaches. On Broadway, you have a vocal therapist.
Mm,
I just think that it's more of a testament to how people keep themselves in shape for Broadway as opposed to because you think about it, you're not finding something new every day. It's the same show every day. It's the same one. And so it's more keeping yourself in shape mentally and physically in order to continue to meet that show.
mhm. Yeah, it does seem like it's a marathon, an ongoing marathon of, I mean, I think about like one performance and I'm like, that's a lot. Like, a three weekend performance, whatever, that's a lot. But Broadway is just, aren't you doing it like every night or so?
Yeah, 8 shows a week for most
Oh
people.
my
Some shows, and especially around holidays, then go
wow.
like 9 or 10 shows a week, and yeah.
And you're singing and you're dancing and it's
Oh my
so
gosh.
physical.
Yeah, and the role that I played is, Cody Jameson Strand is playing it right now. And I mean, it is a physically demanding, it is unbelievable. And then you have to be funny, and then you have to hit the highest note that a male has to hit. It's like uh, it really is, when I'm thinking I wish that I would have while I was there understood that it was about the consistency about that work as opposed to, I think that as actors we're like, ah, what's juicy? What's next? I want the next job or whatever, and it takes like an older person who has been through it, I feel like, to go, oh no, we just got to settle down. We got to settle in here.
Yeah. I agree. I think that's always this push and pull for actors. They always want the next thing, but really acting, it's all about being in the present, it's being in the moment. And that's always the tug and pull. Well, we want to hear a little bit more about the Book of Mormon musical specifically when we come back. So we're going to take a quick break. But we've got more for you with Chase Ramsey here on Backstage Pass with Phoenix. Okay, so we are here with Chase Ramsey, and he did play Elder Cunningham in the Broadway musical, the Book of Mormon musical. So some people love this musical and they want to know what your favorite song was
Oh,
and like your favorite and least favorite part.
well, I think, I can just speak for all of my friends and family that came and saw the show. And there's something about the song Turn It Off. Those of you who have seen the show, and even having grown up Mormon, um, this idea of just push your feelings down, it was such a brilliant, like socio-political idea that the writers figured out. And it's not only, and what's great is it's not only Mormons that do that. It's really like a societal thing of like, if you push your feelings down, then you'll just be happy.
Hmm.
And they have this song called Turn It Off that is just brilliant, a brilliant part of the show. And when I was doing it, the actor who's playing it was so incredible. Oh, well, the current Elder McKinley is what it is. They're just brilliant. So I love that. Now, the favorite song that I sang was probably "Baptize Me." Um, I mean, every single night you sort of lock in and you're having this conversation, and then the music drops, and you turn to the audience, and it's "I'm about to do it for the first time," and it's this really complex song about it's there's a sexual tension, but really it's about me baptizing someone for the first time. It's just
Why?
really it's brilliant. It's brilliant. Yeah. And definitely irreverent, and it's a satire. So every satire is sort of like picking apart, you know, um Jojo Rabbit, of course. You saw
Mhm.
Jojo Rabbit.
Yeah.
Jojo Rabbit's a satire too. It's taking the sort of bad guys and the good guys, and it's flipping them on their head, and it's sort of like revealing them, sort
Uh-huh.
of, so like Hitler's a fun guy,
Hmm.
sort of thing. Like, and I mean, gosh, satire is really hard to write, and it's just brilliant. And then of course, like You and Me, but mostly Me, to those of you who know, is so incredible. And um, I mean, look, I'm not tall enough to do it, but gosh, I would love to play Elder Price some the other elder is just what a great role. So brilliant.
Do you ever sing these songs for people like on the street or at family functions or whatever?
Funny enough, there's not a lot of space, especially at family functions, because most of my family is still religious. But there's not like a lot of space that calls for one of the songs
Huh.
that at least Elder Cunningham sang. There is like I think that Elder Price had more of the belty sort of like Park and Bark, because there's the I Believe song
Hmm.
you probably heard,
Yeah.
the most popular song in the show. Cunningham stuff is a little more character based,
Hmm.
and still, let's be clear, the end of the first act, um, Man Up is a very, very high, very difficult song. So it's still difficult stuff. But
Well, well, I wanted to say that Chase and I actually met on the set of I guess, a TV pilot, and there were people there that just were asking you to sing. I was looking forward to hearing you
that was,
sing.
oh my goodness. Yeah, that was the sweetest, of course. And people,
Yeah.
people fall in love with something like a musical or like a movie or a TV show or something like that, and I've experienced only a little bit of this. I've been around my friends who experience this a lot, and they associate you with that thing because they love it so much. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like Cunningham 50. You know what I mean? There were from Josh Gad to me, there's like, you know what I mean? And all of the people that have played that role and stepped there, not that it's not still something that I'm just so insanely proud to be a part of. And, but yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah.
And you go out and you sign autographs. And
Mhm.
this has helped now being in movies and things, because it's like, you go out and you sign autographs, and then you walk down the street. You sign 100 autographs, and then you walk down the street and you see the trash can on the corner before you get on your train to go home. And in the trash can are 100 of the playbills you just signed. You know what I mean? Like it's not like I think that it's not, it's for them, it's for the people, it's what Matt and Trey created. And like
Yeah.
it, it's really, that'll never feed that'll never feed us as actors like we think it might. You know what I mean? That attention that we think is going to do it, we're chasing something that is just ungettable. It's like having a string dangling in front of you with like a Twinkie on it, and continuing to run after it. You'll never get the Twinkie.
Yeah.
Sorry to get back into psychology again, but
No, this is
it's all
it's
about.
fascinating. I love it. So, I guess we'll kind of combine these two questions. What did you do that separated you from other actors, you think in the audition? And I think along with that, we'll put this other question. What do you feel like you did differently once you got the part from the other 50 people that played Elder Cunningham?
Yeah, wow, those are great questions. And so the first thing my wife tells this story of me sitting in the audition room, or sitting it's called Pearl Studios in New York, and I'm out in the hallway, and there's like 8 other people that they're calling in. And Janessa was just there with me, just supporting me and reading her book, as I was like apparently walking up and down and like meeting the other potential Cunninghams out in the hall. And like she says that I, saw somebody with a tattoo that I thought was interesting, and I just talked to them for like 15 minutes. Everybody else in that room, and I do remember this, was like in their music, whispering and quietly like trying to go over it and memorize the thing. And I think what happened before I walked in the room is that I was just able to center in myself, as opposed to a future
Mhm.
self.
Mhm.
Like going in the room with like oh, okay, I've got to go in and I've got to do this. It's like, well, that's just never going to happen.
Hmm.
Why don't you go in and see what's going to, and this is what's different between self-taping and in person. In person, in my opinion, will always be the best ever because you go into the room and you don't know what people behind the table are just people. And so you get to people first, and then we get into the practice. We get into what you practiced. And so I think the idea of being out in the hallway and already being in the scene when you walk into the room, I think that people are going to be confused. They want to see that you're an actor. You know what I mean? They don't want it to be, in my opinion, not always, and this isn't the same for film, definitely, but they don't necessarily want somebody who is Elder Cunningham to walk in the room. And that's the secret. It's like I'm gonna go in there and like I'm gonna make friends or be a human being in a very weird world, and then we'll do some scenes, we'll do some. And I think that was the difference between me and them. And I was going to say before, I wanted to just throw this out there. I think that the two things that will get anybody on Broadway with consistency and giving it time is self-awareness and self-belief.
Mm.
Because a lot of people have self-belief without self-awareness. You know what I mean? It's sort of a misplaced self-belief. And that's a weird thing to say. Like, who like misplaced self-belief? But I think it's like being able to be present with what is actually happening and believing in yourself at the same time.
I think that's really important, especially how you're saying, you're connecting with the people and then you're connecting with the scene because a lot of times I think actors and just professionals in general, when they're going into a high pressure situation like that, they're constantly thinking about what the other person's thinking before they, even get in there. And then they're psyching themselves out. And like you said, that pulls them out of themselves. It pulls them out of the moment. If you're constantly worrying about, oh, this other person might think this about me, or how are they going to perceive me, or making up all these assumptions, that's totally pulling you backwards. So I love that idea of just being present and being in the moment, getting to know the person that is behind the table, and realizing that they're just a person instead of psyching yourself out about it.
If we could do that work as actors, if that's kind of the grounding work that we could do as actors, I think that we would probably be booking more, those of us. I think those who book a lot and are famous and all those people have what you just said
Hmm.
as their main study,
Hmm.
as their main practice.
Yeah.
Or some people like Jennifer Lawrence was just born with that self-awareness and self-belief, just born with it, like didn't have any. To answer that second part of the question, and I know we're getting close to time here, but um, I think the thing that I did differently in the role, I wouldn't do again. And so I'm glad that you asked. And I've never really talked about this, but I think the role was was a thing and it was already built, and everyone was sort of asking me for a thing. And I, in my gut, wanted it I thought it was something else. And I think that like trusting our guts is so important. It is so important. And like I was almost incapable of just like succumbing to what they wanted at all times. And I could feel myself doing that. And I remember being on Broadway and what's his name got cast as Tony in West Side Story, the movie, Ansel Elgort or whatever his name is. And it doesn't really, he's not the focus of this, but I remember talking to other Broadway actors about, oh gosh, I'm really glad they cast an actor
Hmm.
in that musical movie.
Hmm.
And I think I had that mentality of like, there is a difference between a musical theater actor and an actor. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think to some extent that is true. However, why not both?
Yeah.
Why not both? And I think like Brian Darcy James is a great example of somebody, who has been on Broadway and also been in movies and shown that versatility is there. I think the camera is just such a different medium, but I think that my version of the role wanted to wanted to live a little more in the truth than the musical needed to, and that's something that I fight a lot, is that I just want to get to the bottom of the truth. And in musicals sometimes it's like, yeah, but this is a tap number. You know what I mean? Like, this is goofy. This is just goofy. And so I think, as somebody who is a comedian, I take myself very seriously, and I
Yes.
sometimes wish I didn't, but that's what I'd say.
Okay, this is actually going to drop out, but we do need to do one more segment. Do you mind if I send you a new link? I'm sorry.
Let's do one more. Yeah.
Okay, okay, perfect. I'll just end this really quick then. Unfortunately, we have to wrap things up with Chase Ramsey here. We have one more segment with him, but this has been so fascinating. So if you are just listening in, Chase was Elder Cunningham. He played it on Broadway, the Book of Mormon Musical. So we've been talking about his experience on Broadway, getting there, and his favorite parts of the Book of Mormon Musical. Well, I did want to say there's one little part of the last question that we didn't get to that I wanted to kind of tag on this segment. They wanted to know your least favorite part of being in the Book of Mormon Musical,
Oh, least favorite part.
or hardest thing.
Okay. Yeah, I love do love that question right now, and I feel grateful because I don't think about that ever. I only think about yeah, I the good of that. So that's good. That was a nice reminder that, like, oh, this was such a good life experience for you, and I'm sure that those of you who do it will experience the same thing out there, or anywhere that you do theater. Um, yeah, least favorite, I think it's like I'm not very good at the dynamics outside of acting. I'm not very good at like the politics of anything, or like having a role and then not having a role, or being someone's understudy or backup, or all of the different layers of how that works. I'm just not super good at navigating them, and I think that that has to do with my own, I hate to make it good again, but if I were to look at why that is, I think it just has to do with my own insecurity and, fear that people won't like me or don't like me and things like that. And I think that, when the pandemic happened and we were all sitting in our houses, at the same time, I had just gotten off Broadway, and I started to realize on Broadway how deeply insecure I was. And I got home um to Utah. We moved back to Utah, and there was nothing going on, and I had to sit, and my feelings started to show up, and the feelings were like, everybody hates you, and
Mm-hmm.
and to be in those rooms where you're being extremely vulnerable and you're doing that thing, and then also catching everyone's eyes. And like you said earlier, I love it because I was filling in so many gaps for how people felt about me.
Right.
I was putting bubbles over their heads,
Hmm.
saying this is what they're, you know, and gosh, look, I think it's just a lesson to all of us that it being on Broadway doesn't make that go away.
Yeah.
In fact,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people on Broadway right now are dealing with that exact same thing. And so, the more that we can, I don't know, the more that I can talk to myself about that thing and know that that's a it's a habit, it's a
Right.
defense mechanism. But yeah, that would be my least favorite part. That was hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And facing that, kind of facing your own demons. I think that anytime you're kind of have reached a goal, I guess, it makes you face your own demons. It really puts you to the test. And I really do feel like every actor does face what you're talking about, and most performers do, of this feeling like you want people to like you because that's why you're probably in the entertainment business. It's because you like people, you want them to like you. Performing is for other people, and it feels like rejection if you even think that somebody might not like you or your performance or whatnot. So I think that that's a really good point to make. Um, And
Yeah.
I did want to get to a little bit of your other career. I know you've
Yeah.
had so much other career besides Broadway. You had mentioned being a talk show or a host for a food show, and you've been on some movies, television, different things. Can you talk a little bit about some of your other work that you've done?
Yeah. Well, I
You're
want
like,
to
where
say,
do I start?
yeah. I know. Well, it's funny. Lately, I've been really only doing movies and TV. Like I haven't been on the stage for a little. I'll do something for like if a friend is directing something here and there. But my agents for theater are very mad at me because I'm not doing that. And it's a big commitment to do theater and then have to say no to a movie. But I did, I think the few big things that I've done, outside of like TV, the Yellowstone universe and a lot of the Law and Orders and the um all of that stuff. I did a couple Netflix movies, and I did Kevin Costner's Horizon, which was I think that Horizon did the first movie didn't do very well in theaters, and now it's, doing much better, but it didn't really get the a lot of people who haven't even heard of it, to be honest. Like even in my life, I find people going, "Oh no, I haven't heard of that." I'm at
Mhm.
the dentist and they're like, and I'm
Mhm.
like, "Wow." Especially people like
Yeah.
in the western part of the United States. I'm like, "What are you talking? This is like the story. This is
Yeah.
yours." But I remember going and seeing that movie. So I guess that's some of the stuff that I've done recently. And of course, like I think I have like three movies that I've been in and that haven't come out yet. Recently, we just shot I was invited to join a production company that is based in Utah with some of my best friends, all very, very gifted. And we just shot our first movie as a production company. And we've been going to now the international film market at Cannes, and then we did American film market in Las Vegas this year. And we're learning about distribution and making our own movies. So we just shot our first movie, which was a full uh, SAG. It happens to be a horror movie starring Hunter King and and then Wes Brown, who's good friends in it, Austin Archer and Lindsay Foster. I mean, the cast is awesome. And so I think I've been putting a lot of emphasis in and then we now have a couple more, funny enough, horror films that we're going to be shooting that just got funded. And we just found out, and this is a huge secret, but we just got a big actor just signed on to another movie
Oh,
here in Utah. Yeah, and it's fun when I because I say big actor and it's like, like these are just my peers at some point. Like some of my best friends are what people would consider big famous actors or whatever, but it's like it's huge because nowadays you can't really make a movie unless you have an A-lister.
yeah.
So,
So are you producing, directing, or are you acting in this? On the
um
horror movie?
I'm I mean I happened to act in this horror movie, this last one that we did. I can't act in all of them. But that last one I starred alongside Hunter in, I was lucky to be offered that role from the director who is also a co-owner. Chris Copier is his name. Brilliant, incredible human. And yeah, so like the next couple I probably won't play a role in, or if I do, it'll be a small role. One of the movies that we're doing, I'm probably going to be directing. I have a past in directing, and I've directed a few movies um and stuff. And not to say that I know anything about it or that I'm that I know what I'm doing, but I've got a good team around me, of course. And yeah, I think that's the stuff. I was gonna say I went to Warner Brothers Studio and I watched Horizon, because I was in this movie and 2 months of filming and just like unbelievable being there with somebody like Costner and all of these other famous, like good, most of them very good actors, and like legendary
Mhm.
actors. And um I went and saw the movie and I had this feeling after the movie. I was like, oh, that's not for me necessarily. Like watching the movie because I'm like, oh, I think it's my dream. I'm like on the Warner Brothers back lot. I'm in a private screening room to see Horizon months before it goes out. It's like I think this is my dream that I never even had. In fact, pinch me. This is crazy, sort of thing. And then I walked out of the movie and I was like, being on set and acting in that movie was unreal.
Yeah.
Just such an incredible experience. Watching the movie is not that same experience. And I think that was an interesting, like, oh, I think I'm an actor. You know,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I do like being an actor.
Yeah, for sure. And I think everyone kind of has that dawning moment. Um, I want to take a lot of your time. I did want to wrap with this question.
Oh no.
So you've had so many different facets to your career. Um, well, really quick, what was the name of the show that you hosted that was food? You're a food host?
Oh yeah, California Dream Eater. And in
Ooh,
fact, if you go on YouTube and you type in California Dream Eater, you'll see like 100 little episodes of all the different places.
I love that. That sounds like my dream role, being a TV food show host. But I did want to ask, what do you feel like helped you launch your career? Everyone's kind of fighting for these different hustles. What did you do that launched your career and helped you just kind of start getting more work?
I think you have to go and get uncomfortable in a new place. Um, Go somewhere where you where people will challenge you and push you to the next level and just be naive to it. There's something about even it's funny, even if there's something about I guess if you're from LA, let's say you've grown up in LA and you went to Hollywood High or whatever, you're probably already surrounded with people, so many people, like a number, and it's just a numbers game in that world right there, where you're always going to be given something new every day as an actor from people. You're just surrounded by new things. And I think if you're in a small town like I was in, you're going to be given the same things over and over. You're going to sort of stay where you are and in a way it starts to get confusing why it's not changing or why it's not getting bigger or better or I think like where I'm from there's a community theater that a lot of people think is Broadway, um and so people are like doing everything they can to get into that theater. And what I like to say is, well, you're going to learn, you can teach yourself or learn how to get into that theater, that one thing, that one entity, but they have their own biases there and their own way that serves their audience here in this location. And so, do you want to teach yourself how to work for them, or do you want to teach yourself how to work for you? And I think what happens in the theater when you go to New York is that there's a million different theaters that you're auditioning for and different shows and different teams and different biases that you're auditioning for. And at some point, as you gather all these tools that you love, it's going to line up. And then it's going to start to line up again once you get more practice, and it's going to line up again and again and again. But if you don't diversify what that is for yourself, and be around those people that can open you up to those things, it's going to be hard to find that truth. Because I would say sometimes the people that don't get into shows at these local, you know, Taj Mahal of theaters, these local community theaters or even local regional theaters or whatever, people that don't get into those, sometimes as a coach, I want to say, oh, well, then you're probably more right for Broadway. I want to be like, you not getting that job actually probably makes you better for the world.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like outside of this bubble, you're probably ready, actually. And I think we just kind of forget that. Like our worth is tied up in a here-ness. And it's like, no, you can go anywhere, you can be anywhere, and you can do anything. And so if you want to do this, go be around people who don't think the same as you and continue to develop your self-awareness and your self-belief while you do it. And gosh, I think it's going to happen.
I love
Don't,
that.
don't stay. Don't stay, you
Wow,
know.
there's so many follow-up questions for that and things we didn't get to, but I know I've taken a lot of your time today and we really do appreciate you coming on. I mean, if you can hear it, even I know that you'd said at the beginning you played the Josh Gad role in the Book of Mormon musical, and I do hear it. I almost feel like your voice sounds like him ever since you said that. So,
That's funny. That's
but,
funny.
but this has been so much fun. If people want to connect with you and find out more about your projects, what you're up to, or maybe connect with you, how can they do that?
Uh, I'm on Instagram, Chase Ramsey, really. I think it is on Instagram, and that's mostly where I post or do anything. And then of course IMDb is a great place to go and see what's going on. But I mean, I am my DMs are open for sure. I love to I just yeah, I love to engage. As you know, we've worked together. I love to meet and experience new people and in this art. I'm constantly learning like I'm trying not to know too much nowadays. So I'm like, please tell me, you tell me in my DMs what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like it, and it is refreshing. I mean, I reached out in your DMs, and I was like, I don't know if I'll ever see these, but you did, and you reached right back. So I do appreciate that, and you're just being there for people. So yes, Chase Ramsey really on Instagram.
Instagram. Wait, before we go, can I
Yes.
just say when we did that show, just for the listeners,
Uh-huh.
you were you were so good. Like our chemistry in the thing, it was just one day, it was one bit, but it was like I walked away and I was like, oh my gosh, that's a series right there. That relationship just felt so like way to, like coming and co-starring on a or guest starring on a thing is like not easy. And you came in and it was like just like right away, you just knew what it was. And anyway, so
Thank
brilliant. I just
you.
had to
I
give a kudos to you. You've been so kind to me. And it's like, okay, you're the one that came and killed it, you know? So yeah.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I'm glad that we have that documented. I'll
Yeah.
watch it. Hopefully this comes to fruition now. It's called But Wait, There's More, so more to come on that.
Yeah.
Well, that's the current working title. Yeah, thank you, Chase. That was really fun, and it was really fun to work with you as well. And go listen to this, share this with your friends because I'm sure you have Broadway friends, those li who are listening that want to hear all about this. So you can find it now anywhere you get your podcasts. You can find it on YouTube, and also follow us on Instagram. It's Backstage Pass with Phoenix. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.